It's Tech Tip Tuesday, so you get to hang out with me, Leah, for a short chat, maybe a long chat. Sometimes I talk a lot, so we'll see how this goes. So hi guys, Leah here. For Tech Tip Tuesday today, I've got a rockin' explanation of feet. Not any foot in specific, but all the generations of Bernina things. And then the book I have in our display today is Bernina's Big Book of Feet. So I'm going to talk about the different styles of Bernina feet and what you're going to be watching for if you're trying to buy feet and you have a Bernina. So the Big Book of Feet is a really fantastic educational resource, and it goes through kind of the what's and how's and whys of each foot that Bernina currently makes. So there might be older ones that aren't in here. So the Big Book of Feet is a big book, but it's set up kind of as a workbook. So if you need information on anything Bernina makes, it's a really good reference and explains the parts of a Bernina foot. They talk about that right at the beginning of the Big Book of Feet. And the important things for you guys to know, there's not anything similar for brother feet, unfortunately. Brother doesn't make as many varieties of feet. Bernina really makes a lot, and they make multiples of nearly the same thing. So for brother, there's kind of one blind hem foot, whereas Bernina, there's some of the feet have 3 or 4 different versions of it, and 2 generations of feet. So way more options in Bernina land. But this is a really good reference for just how different feet work anyway. And yes, it is Bernina specific, but a lot of the information in here would transfer over to other brands and other feet. So Bernina feet latch onto the machine on a little cone. And that's called the connection point. There's 2 generations of that connection point. So we refer to them as white box and red box feet. So if you're buying a foot for a Bernina, we are going to ask, usually we'll double check that you're buying the right style of foot for your machine, because they're not interchangeable. The cones that these fit onto are different shapes, and the latches are slightly different. So a foot that fits a brand new Bernina is not going to fit a 40-year-old Bernina from a different generation. But there's kind of a clear defining point for when the feet changed. So we'll go through that. Most Bernina feet have a little screw at the back that likes to wiggle loose and fall down onto where you're sewing. It's to hold in seam guides in the back. Shank is the main part. For those of you with brother, that would be the part that your feet clip onto. Bernina, it's all one piece. And then the sole. This is the business part of your foot, and it's the bottom. And the bottom of your foot is really the business part of your foot that will let it do what it's designed to do. So those are things to keep in mind. Just because they look nearly identical on top doesn't mean they're identical underneath. So generations of Bernina feet. So when you're here in store, if you're looking for a number 10 foot, these feet are nearly identical. The older machines that have the all metal exteriors, that would be similar, like an 830 record, a 530 record, a 730 record, anything in the 1000 series. So 1000 series machines, this is all metal on the front, on the outside of the machine. They take the first generation of Bernina feet, which we would call red box feet. So for the most part, there's just kind of one red box foot that will fit most of these older machines. Some of the really old ones only have a 4mm stitch hole, but most of the feet that are available are 5, and those will work fairly well for you. So if you're looking for a foot, first you need to know what the model number is of your machine. If that's not a number that sticks in your head, I would write it down and save it on your phone, because usually we ask when you come in, but I would hate to sell you the wrong foot and have you get home and have it not attach onto your presser foot shaft. It would make life really quite sad if you're super excited to use it. So that's kind of the first thing you need to know is red box or white box. The red box, they say Gamma Kappa on them, And current packaging either has a gray square right here or this red backing card to differentiate it from the newer stock. If you have old Berninas at home, we stock almost all the feet, or we're trying to stock all the feet that are available, so that if there's a specialty foot that you've seen somebody use on a new Bernina, there's a chance it might exist for your old Bernina. Not a guarantee, but definitely a chance. So that's an old number 10 foot. Most of the older feet have 2 prongs at the top. And most of the newer feet, that's a newer one, have a solid cap on there. So number 10 is a number 10, but you need a number 10 that fits your machine. And then the business part of the foot is up underneath. So number 10 has this great spring guide. It's for top stitching or edge stitching. Now to make this more complicated, because this wasn't easy enough at the outset, Bernina feet with just numbers on them are 5mm stitch holes. So the opening for your needle is 5mm on there. The next thing you have is some of the older machines, when you get up into kind of the newer of the old machines, so something like a 1630, they started making 9mm stitch widths. So the opening on this foot is 9mm, and so that the machines could differentiate between a 9mm and a 5mm, they added what they call a code up at the top. So some of the 9mm feet for the old ones have a C on them, so it'll be 10C, but the new ones definitely have that C. And the C kind of just stands for code. And what it does, the machine can't tell exactly what foot you have. The machines are not that smart. So with the exception of plugging in a stitch regulator, the machines actually have no idea what foot, but they know the category of foot that you have on. So the way that works is up inside the machine, just above where the foot clips on, is an optical sensor, and it just reflects light through the top of this foot to tell it what size a foot is. So on a machine that is capable of doing 9mm, it's going to reflect through here and let the machine know that there's a 9mm opening, you can go up to a 9mm stitch. When you switch back and put on a foot without one of those codes, it's like, oh, I can't go 9mm anymore. My stitch width limit is 5.5mm. So that code is really a safety for you and your machine, and it won't let your machine stitch into the opening on one of these narrower feet. The codes work a little bit differently when you get into straight stitch feet, and it will tell your machine that it has a straight stitch foot depending what machine you have. Not universally, but some of them will be able to tell, oh no, I have a straight stitch foot, I can't move my needle over, or I can't do a zigzag at the moment. So that code is super helpful for keeping you safe and out of trouble. So no number or no letter is a 5mm foot, with a C is a 9mm foot, and C's and no letters are available in both red box and old box, or red box and white box, so new and old styles. And then the other thing that is available, where's that? Let's just throw everything around. Some of the newest machines on the market, starting with Bernina's big computerized 830 and the 7 series, and the new 5s and the new, not the new 4s, the new 5s, have what's called dual feed. So it's got an extra little hooky thing that will pull your fabric through. And that's called the dual feed. So it acts like half a walking foot on top of your fabric, but it denotes, when you have a D on the foot, it denotes dual feed. So if you have an option and you're standing at the rack looking at feet wondering, what do I buy? If your machine has dual feed, you're going to have 3 options usually. You're going to have a dual feed option, a 9mm option without dual feed, and or an option without a letter. I would usually pick the dual feed one first, and then if you still need a 9mm one and you don't need the dual feed, then you can go get that C version kind of third. So then you have 3 options. So knowing what machine you have is critical when you're coming to buy feet, specifically for Berninas. It's definitely easier with Brother because most feet fit most of their machines. So red box or white box, and then number, letter C or letter D. So there's options for you there, but you'll want to make sure you get something that fits your machine. The other thing to be aware of is you can put one of the 5mm feet on a machine with 9mm feed. The feed dogs aren't covered the same way. So if all you had was a number 10 and you have a 9mm machine that would normally take a 10C, you can use that older foot as long as it's still the same generation of feed. So you can definitely use that number 10 if you don't have a 10C, and your machine just won't let you do a wider stitch than the opening. So the one other thing I was going to talk about, there's a whole bunch of feet for both red box and white box generation machines that there's only one available on the rack. So sometimes there's 3 options, sometimes there's 2 options, and sometimes there's only 1 option. So if there's only 1 option on the rack, it's designed for every machine in that generation. So this is a number 9 from a red box, and it's a darning foot. So the function of a darning foot doesn't change no matter which width of feed you have, because your feed dogs are dropped, and this is just keeping your fabric from riding up the needle. So a darning foot, whether you have an 830 record or a 730 record or an 1130 or a 1630, you're going to use the same darning foot. So some of those feet are fairly interchangeable. And then there's just one out there for you to pick from, which seems a whole lot easier, right? And then most feet have like their main job, and then they have a whole bunch of other fun jobs that they can do. And that's where the Bernina Big Book of Feet comes in handy, because it'll show you what the foot was originally designed for, and then it will show you what else that foot can do. Bernina's got some really, really great videos on how their feet work. So if you're not sure of something and you want a video demo, go watch the videos. But the Big Book of Feet is just a lovely reference book. So I was showing you guys the number 10 foot. And this information will apply whether you're using a new machine or an old machine. And the book is all written for the newer white box machines. But that doesn't mean the information isn't valid everywhere else. So the number 10 foot, it lists kind of its main purpose, but it has suggestions of all the other things you can do with it and where you might want your needle and your stitch length and stitch width. So you have lots of options. Number 10 foot's probably one of the most sold aftermarket foots. But it's designed for top stitching and edge stitching. You can do all sorts of fun things with it. Edge to edge seams. It's magic. So the book's going to give you ideas of how to work with that foot in lots and lots of ways, so that you're not... Lots of the feet have their main purpose. But there's so many things most of these feet can do that you don't have to feel like you bought it to only do the one thing. And there's things like gathering feet, cording feet, free motion feet, which falls into like a giant list of feet. I think there's 8 or 9 now. Feet that will work for some form of free motion quilting. Some of the specialty feet like lap seam feet, invisible zipper feet. It's a riot. I'm totally a foot junkie, so if there's a foot that will make my life like 3 seconds faster, I probably have it. So much fun. I'm gonna show you guys, this one. Bernina is also the only domestic brand that does some really, really unique things. We usually show this foot in our Bernina new owners class. It's a crazy looking foot, number 55. And it was originally designed to sew ladies' gloves. So it turns on a dime and it doesn't mar fabric. So it's designed to sew on leather. It's called the leather roller foot. But there's specialty things like this that if you're trying to do a specific job and you have a Bernina, there's probably a foot that will make it better for you. So you can free motion quilt with it, you can make giant piping with it, but really it was initially designed for ladies' gloves. So a couple things to watch for when you're picking your feet. Again, I said red box for the metal covers, white plastic covers, or white box feet. When you're looking at your machine to figure out if you need 5mm or 9mm, check out the hole in here and your maximum stitch width up here. So maximum stitch width is 5. You're probably going to be a 5mm foot, so that's just a number. This machine here, so the stitch opening here is 9mm. So the feed dogs are further apart and the wider feet will fit better on here. And then the last style is anything with the dual feed. Has a sorry, I don't have a stitch plate on this one. Has a 9mm opening. And that dual feed is the little arm that comes down from the back and will fit in the gap in the back of these feet. Yeah, the dual feed is like a half a walking foot. So a walking foot is a big bulk mover, and the dual feed is just a little guide to help pull along the top layer of your fabric. So both are really useful. Walking foot is still the better mover for bulk, but dual feed will manage slippery, slinky, stretchy, really long strips. It handles all the weirdness much better than a regular foot. Kind of makes sense for feet. I'm hoping so. If you have more questions or if you're ever needing a specialty foot, don't hesitate to ask. We've got lots of people here who sew on Berninas and lots of people who are total feet junkies like me. And we'd rather get you the right foot to make your life super easy than have you sitting at home struggling being like, I wish this was easier. Or I could use a guide on a foot, or I want to be able to make something specific, piping, couch cushions, something like that, invisible zippers. There's special feet for all sorts of things. And all you ladies with the brothers, if you come across something in the Bernina land that piques your interest and you want to know what would be the equivalent in brother, there's lots and lots of feet in brother that do equivalent things. They're just not really educated that way. So we can help you out. I know brother has a gathering foot that works similar to what Bernina has. I know they have feet that will work for big fat piping. How they get there is just a little bit different on a brother than on a Bernina. There's edge stitch feet. They're just labeled differently. So we can help you out with those things. If you have a specific problem, we can find the specific solution for you. So, any questions about Bernina feet? Thanks for joining me today. Have a happy Tuesday. Stay cool if you can. Be kind, be safe, be calm, and we will check in tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye.